In today's video, we are going to watch Digital Foundry's reaction or impressions of the Intellivision Amico E3 presentation. I'm a big fan of Digital Foundry because they keep everything very professional. They don't really have a bias or an agenda. They just tell it how it is. And lately, they've been doing a lot more retro videos. I forget what this guy's name is, but he's really good with that and talking about all the different products you can buy or use. And it'll be interesting to see what they say about the Intellivision, since they usually push, the latest technology and talk about ray tracing and all the fun stuff. So press play in a sec and see what they say.
I feel like it's time for the discussion about the all-important Intellivision Amico.
Guy in the bottom left starts
Gentlemen,
laughing.
are you ready? There was
Actually,
a
he looks like he's
15-minute
turning his head in
presentation.
disgust.
We got to see the Amico in action. We got to see the controller. We got to see the games.
Got to see Tommy Tallarico.
We got to see Tommy Tallarico.
Another shot on Tommy. See, I wasn't the only one who knows.
First thoughts, Audie.
The unnecessary parts of the Tommy Tallarico at the beginning.
Let's
You're
try to
laughing.
have one. It looks very much like the people who are working on it believe in it. And I think
He's only saying that because he
idea
can't
they
think of
have
any other
is
positive to say.
sound.
So
I think family entertainment.
he's saying the only positive is they have
I
enthusiasm.
think, the living room experience is something that definitely should live on as someone that has grown up playing with brothers, sisters,
I like
and
the
families.
Ninja Turtle headphones.
At the same time, I question whether or not this market already does exist. Already
Nintendo Switch
is pretty well represented in this form of mobile and even the consoles themselves, such as the Switch.
There
And
you go.
they keep saying they're not competition and whatnot, and I totally understand and agree. But at the same time, we're seeing games that are basically variations of what we can get on the consoles. So it's sort of like yes, but no.
And then
You're
another
still
site
getting
here
platformers
saying
like
that
was Fox
The
Forest
non-competition is
and Dino
What
Blaster.
is-
not
we're getting the sequel
legitimate.
to that.
Yeah, okay.
It's Finnegan Fox, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, very nice name.
So actually, I think that specific game highlights one of my biggest critiques with the games that they've shown is that, Fox and Forest was a pixel art game that evoked Super NES style visuals.
There you go. Another person
Finnegan
who
Fox
prefers
or
the
whatever
pixel
sort of
art.
goes for that high res art that
Yeah.
I don't want to say flash like,
Flash.
but it's kind of flash like. And a lot of these games have this look where they just look like
Exactly.
kind of
Looks cheap.
relatively, I'm sure they are low budget, but they look like low budget mobile games in a way that's
Ouch.
not, that I feel is not necessarily something that should be a limit of the hardware platform itself. It's just they've made some strange artistic decisions that make the games look
So
somewhat
basically saying
unappealing,
they made the game
even
look
if the
worse by
concept itself
changing it
is
to
sound.
from pixel art to cheap
And also the
mobile.
performance seems really poor at this point, which is not acceptable for a game like that. But I know they're not. They keep saying we're not
Yeah, Finnegan
competing with that audience.
Didn't look too
but
smooth when in a few
I
parts
feel
they
like
did
they
show of
could
it.
do this better. Like the idea is interesting. They're saying, it's not. This isn't a platform designed with DLC in mind. It's not designed with patches and such in mind. It's just meant to be. You ship a product, it's done. It's more limited in scope. The prices start like $10 to $20 for the games. I see where they're going. It's just I don't. Who's going to want to work on this? And
Exactly.
like,
No developer.
especially
will.
since they're saying like, oh yeah, the games in here are either going to be exclusives or have exclusive content. Like, who are they to make those demands to these developers unless they have a lot of cash to throw around to make that possible?
They don't.
But we've seen this stuff before. I mean, not that it's necessarily comparable to something like Stadia, but Google threw a lot of money at people to bring stuff to Stadia. It didn't mean anything in the end.
It's a good point.
They really have to deliver.
Stadia put
something
in
more
millions
to
and millions of
actually make
dollars
it
and
enticing.
nobody cared.
Yeah, I think the we're not competing with anyone angle is interesting because for me, they may not feel like they're not competing, but I think about a product like the Evercade Versus that was just announced.
Check out my video
And
for
I see
the
that
comparison.
as a competitor, and it's cheaper, and that is a family, a local cooperative 2-player system where you and your friend,
two
or
players,
your
4-player.
brother or sister can plug in and play games together.
And you can use third-party controllers,
and,
so you don't have
for
to use their
me,
controllers.
I think that Amico is competing with something like that, even though they may not
See,
really
this
be thinking
guy
about
agrees with me.
something like the
It's like
Advocate.
the
But
British John Hancock.
that's kind of where I see maybe the Amico stumbling is really the marketing research they've done. Maybe, you know, it does suggest that they are, you know, there are people out there that want a offline cooperative local co-op, you know, home system that plays family friendly games. But I think if they looked a little closer, there's probably other competing systems out there that do very similar things.
Check my video for that too.
I think their price target too is a problem. They're aiming for like $299, which is awful steep.
Yeah.
I also think when you say, oh, we're not competing, and we're not going to tread on this over and over, but when you have a game in development like Earthworm Jim, which is a game in a series that would only really interest a more specifically hardcore audience who are on the consoles already, I don't think anyone below the age of 30 really is sitting there wanting a new Earthworm Jim.
What we've been saying,
you know, it would be people like
for older,
us three.
Yeah.
I think all of us would
people
say like a new Earthworm Jim. That's interesting. What's it for?
Yeah,
the Amico. All right. Not to mention that like the hardware, which we haven't even really spoken about. The hardware seems quite low powered, and then also just the idea of it. I do think that having these controllers with these screens and touchpads, it's an interesting idea. It makes kind of each game you know, unique or bespoke or whatever you want to say. But
wait till they get
first
in
of all,
there.
there's no precision with these touch
the lag tests. I'll be hilarious.
The platformers and whatnot are out the window.
Well, it's not just you have touch controls and you have that wheel.
The wheel,
so simulates
the
original wheel. Exactly, and like that doesn't make for a good D-pad like option or control stick style option.
So what's the option? Do you
roll?
do a classic controller thing where that can be attached, or do you use Bluetooth? And that brings up the point I wanted to make is this could have maybe been more like the Ouya, and maybe not too much like the Ouya, but it could have been very simply a square little box with some sort of front end and storefront where you had these exclusive experiences in games, and then your cell phone basically had an app that corresponds to this, and it would have basically been the same, and maybe the specs would have been even better considering that smartphones probably will eclipse the power of any of the gamepads,
and that's what a bunch of people
have said, already are, I would assume.
I kind of feel like the gamepad thing though is kind of key to their appeal, just because we've seen so many of those Android boxes out there, and they were probably trying to find a way to differentiate themselves in that way, but I think you're probably right. Putting resources into that direction is not necessarily going to lead to the best products. So
I have to still say that I really respect them for trying something new.
Yeah,
I really do respect them for, you know, they've been sticking out for this now for 5 years, 4 years.
It's been a while, yeah.
And both you and I know quite a few people involved in the project, so whatever it is, you know, I do hope that they do find an audience and that there's some success to be had there, because fun for the family is not a bad thing, and if families are having fun on the Amico, then even
these
better.
guys are taking the high road. Yeah, at least you're being professional.
And they will have physical games, so
I like that.
I mean, Limited Run should get on that.
Limited Run.
Plumbers
Amigo games.
Well,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, the Amigo version. Well, actually, they announced that everything would have to be E-rated.
Get on the bottom right's laughing. He's like, "This is ridiculous."
You get the censored version.
Yeah,
it's only like 5 minutes long, and then there you go. Limited run games.
And that's all they had for their impressions of the Amico. So basically, they kept it professional and tried to be nice and looking for the positives. And mainly, the only positive they can find is that they have a lot of enthusiasm. But basically, they, in a polite way, said this console does not make sense. How it's created doesn't make sense. Who is it targeting? Not kids. And they even took a little cheap shot at Tommy because he featured himself for the first minute. So overall, I'd assume, or from what my impressions is, they're not impressed by this console, and they're just trying to be nice. And basically, they wish them luck, and that's the only good thing they have to say is like, well, hopefully you have good luck. So yet another major gaming media outlet dismisses the Intellivision Amico. I'll keep posting more if I find more from, well, the larger sites at least. So till then, tune in next time.